Dame Priti Patel has put her name forward as the unity candidate for the Conservative election. Let's go back a bit, because she needs a little bit of placing, and she needs to be put in her place, so to speak. I'm sure many people have said that to her. And I'm sure she's said that to quite a lot of other people too. So it's not an expression she will not have heard. But I'm going to put Priti Patel in her place for you. So in 2020, a Cabinet Office inquiry found that Priti Patel, then serving as Home Secretary, had unintentionally breached the ministerial code because of her behaviour towards civil servants. The investigation concluded that her actions at times amounted to bullying, citing instances of shouting, swearing and belittling staff. Unintentional. So there you are. It's possible to unintentionally bully somebody. The bullying allegations led to the resignation of Sir Philip Rutnam, the permanent secretary of the Home Office, who claimed he'd been a target of, quote, a vicious and orchestrated briefing campaign against him. His departure was significant as it highlighted the tensions within the department and brought further attention to Priti Patel's conduct. Inadvertent bullying. So nobody's questioning about whether or not she was found to have bullied people. It's her motivation and the fact that she didn't realise what she was doing. Poor thing. Despite the findings of the Cabinet Office inquiry and the recommendations that she breached the ministerial code, the then Prime Minister Boris Johnson decided to keep Priti Patel in her role. Johnson valued loyalty more than he valued honesty or ethical behaviour, it seems. He stated that Patel had not intentionally bullied anyone and expressed his full confidence in her as Home Secretary. This decision was controversial and drew criticism, suggesting that political loyalty and the desire to maintain a stable government was more important than propriety. Priti Patel served as Home Secretary from July the 24th, 2019 until September the 6th, 2022, and she stepped down following Boris Johnson's resignation, aligning her departure with her long-term allies' exit from the government. So like a sort of Nadine Dorries light. Her tenure was marked by her hardline stance on immigration, law enforcement, and the implementation of a points-based immigration system post-Brexit, and the gestation of the Rwanda plan, which was then carried out by her successor. Priti Patel has now announced her candidacy for the leadership of the Conservative Party, positioning herself as a unity candidate capable of rejuvenating the party. Yes, well, it's going to take it right into the arms of Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage expects to be leader of the Conservative Party within 5 years, and this is certainly a way forward. She emphasises her The problem with Nigel Farage is that while he is an extraordinarily persuasive speaker, while he's highly intelligent, significantly more intelligent than his lapdog, Lee Anderson, who I think probably he's trying to distance himself from, Farage, rather like Suella Braverman and quite a lot of the Conservative bigwigs in the end of the last government, was more interested in or couldn't see the distinction between identifying a problem and proposing a solution. So he picks the first solution off the shelf, and that is then gospel. And he blends together problem and solution. And it's something that seems to be symptomatic of the far right of the Conservative Party and of Reform UK. This inability to distinguish between problem and the range of solutions which might possibly deal with that problem. Now, maybe that's a problem with power. Maybe the Labour Party and government will do the same thing. And, if they do, I will criticise them in the same way, of course. But I think it's a failure, and it was particularly a failure with Priti Patel and Suella Braverman, and it is definitely a failure with Nigel Farage. But Farage is significantly brighter than a lot of the other individuals. And I say that without necessarily endorsing him or liking him particularly. It's simply an objective fact. He is a bright boy. And he has a sort of streetwise cleverness, which greatly eclipses a lot of the bookish wisdom that you see from people like Rishi Sunak, who is also a clever fellow, one of the cleverest fellows who has been in government. But he was incapable of doing proper politics. Farage has proven to be very good at political manoeuvring, but not very good at doing the hard work so far. So we have to see how he gets on. But I mean, he's affable. He talks. He engages with people in a way that is unusual in British politics at the moment. So although I don't fancy the idea of Farage taking over the Conservative Party or having a great success, I can see that he's more capable of achieving success and achieving substance than most of the individuals who are rallying around for the leadership election at the moment of the Conservative Party, and also most of the people in Reform. Well, actually, I only really know of one of the other people in Reform. The rest are insignificant. What else can I say about that? And Farage towers above Lee Anderson in terms of intelligence. So Priti Patel has announced her candidacy, and she's emphasised her political experience, her dedication to conservative values. There you get that expression again, the conservative values. Well, I don't remember hearing this term conservative values until about 8 years ago. It's a newly coined concept. Conservative values as strengths in her campaign, but as if we know what they are. Because it's not quite Thatcherism, and it's not old conservatism. It's something new. It's something anchored. I'm not sure whether there should be another consonant there, in an attitude to immigration. And I don't think that's conservative. If you go back to Mrs. Thatcher, when she was asked about returning failed asylum seekers to their home countries, and she said, when those home countries refuse to take them, that will be the collapse of our system. We are in that position now, of course. But she was operating on the principle that if somebody comes to this country and asks for asylum, then they must be processed. If that asylum is then rejected, they are not refugees, they are failed asylum seekers, they are illegal migrants, they must leave the country. There's only two ways you become an illegal migrant until Suella Braverman's 3 laws in 2022 onwards, and that is by being by overstaying a visa or by being rejected for an asylum application. Oh, indeed, there is a third way, by not having a visa in the first place. Those people who come here as migrants, every refugee is, of course, by definition, a migrant. A migrant is somebody who travels. Those people who come here as migrants and who claim asylum then become asylum seekers and are then protected by the 1951 Refugee Convention. And they should then, until Suella Braverman's laws, be granted the opportunity of having their application processed. Should that application be successful, they are granted refugee status. They then become refugees. They are given asylum. They're given refuge. Should that application be rejected, there are some legal processes they can go through to appeal, but essentially they are on notice that they will shortly become an illegal migrant, and therefore will have a duty to leave the country, and may indeed even be removed from the country. Now, they should then be sent back to their country of origin, except that we now have a number of countries that we can't return people to safely. And that's part of the definition of the Rwanda bill, which was made earlier this year, which defined into existence the safety of a country, and that is an extraordinarily worrying precedent. I think that's one of the reasons why that act is so heinous. The other two acts, the Illegal Immigration Act and the Nationality and Borders Act, removed the concept of the 1951 Refugee Convention, the effective amnesty to anybody who uses an illegal route to access a country and then claims asylum. They are no longer given that option. So that is in defiance of the 1951 Refugee Convention. And at the same time, the Home Secretary is given a duty under those laws to remove them from this country. So unless those laws are repealed, the present Home Secretary is legally bound to remove people who come to this country by an illegal route. Doesn't make them illegal migrants according to international law, only according to British law. And all of this process begins with Priti Patel. Actually, it begins with Theresa May. And it's a manipulation of law to... It's a perversion of law in order to get a particular result. Law should be a general principle. If we want a particular result, we have to do something else. We have to make sure that all the laws that refer to that and all the international agreements that refer to that problem are amended, reformed, sorted out. You can't just add another law which nullifies bits of an international agreement. I think Priti Patel and Suella Braverman were appalling Home Secretaries, both of them, and I think cleverly was incapable of moving forward in his own right. He may have been... I don't think he was capable of doing so. I think he's rather dull. But he was simply the instrument of either Priti Patel or Suella Braverman, and so therefore largely irrelevant. Robert Jenrick is interesting because he's modifying some of the positions he's taken. And Suella Braverman, in addition, believes that we should be leaving the European Court of Human Rights. That's not the only thing that stands in the way of putting through these laws and getting rid of migrants who come to our shores. We have to withdraw or reform the 1951 Refugee Convention. My instinct is that that convention is something a lot of nations would like to reformulate and would like to tidy up so that it's relevant to the situation we've got developing in the 21st century, with a lot more people on the move internationally than was happening at the end of the Second World War when the 1951 Refugee Convention was drawn up. Now, Priti Patel's leadership bid comes at a time when there is gradually becoming quite a crowded field of candidates, each vying to replace Rishi Sunak as the Conservative Party leader, and her campaign focuses on unifying the party, reversing its recent electoral losses through strong, quote, conservative policies, greater engagement with party members, and the outcome of this leadership contest will be determined through a series of ballots culminating in an online vote by Conservative Party members. And, of course, Priti Patel is very popular with the online local Conservative vote. So if she's on the final ticket, there's a strong possibility that she could find herself winning. God help us.